You had a chance earlier today to see a video on your dad, Bill Catania Sr., and talking about his dad and going to understanding on how a car was built, etc. As you watch that and what you know separately about that, what's your reflection on the legacy of that, your family legacy in this?
Yeah, so my grandfather got it all started, and I heard stories growing up, my dad telling stories when he was little, going to Stateline and Coon Road Speedway and watching the races. That's really where his love started. And my grandfather, unfortunately, as the story unfolded, right, had to get out of it a little bit early, probably earlier than he wanted to, but his partner passed away, Carl Larson. So my father couldn't wait, to get his hands in it and start doing it. And I was the same way. For me, I helped my dad in the pits, I'd say from 1986 or 7, which I was at that time 10, 11 years old, until I could drive. And even then still, helped him with his car because we ran 2 cars at the same time. But it's really, as my life has unfolded, I've done a lot professionally, but that still means more to me, from a personal perspective than anything, is my roots here and the track and the racing legacy that I've been a part of.
So talk a little bit more about your dad and racing. He was he drove, and he also built cars, didn't he?
He did, and that was something that I always really looked up to, was that he built everything. I don't know if people realize just how much he built. He built his trailer. He built a machine to make the body on the car. He built the car, he built the engine, he did work, he had Connie Johnson do some machine work, but that was about it. Everything he did with his hands. Didn't have, like a lot of great people around these parts and around racing, didn't have an engineering degree, but he was an engineer. Didn't need a degree. He always talked about Junior Hanley using a piece of string. And I think he looked at him as somebody that he wanted to be like, did not use a tape measure, but used a piece of string. My dad, of course, knew how to read a tape measure, but he was very resourceful. I mean, he had a small business. We were on a small, 6-acre grape farm. Didn't have a lot of cash, to do this, especially at the level he did it in the limited late division. And he had to use ingenuity. He had to be resourceful. And that's something I always respected.
When you went to the racetrack, and I assume it was Stateline and Erie's?
Yes, as a kid, those are the only 2 tracks I ever went to. We never went outside Stateline and Erie's, which I think is one of the reasons why I, as an adult, wanted to tour so much.
And as a result, going to that, do you have recollections of sitting either in the pits or watching your dad? I mean, your dad's out there now putting himself in a little bit of harm's way.
Oh yeah, I never thought about that side of it. It's funny, as a competitor and even as a kid, you don't think about that. You think about the competitive side of it. And when that happens, of course, you have to deal with it. He flipped one time. That was really concerning. I would say that would have been in the late 80s, right before he built his new car, 89. And that was maybe the first and only time I was scared, was when he flipped. He flipped coming down the back straightaway. Him and Kurt Thorpe got together, and the left rear dug in the straightaway and just launched him straight up. And he barrel rolled, almost like Richard Petty when he barrel rolled at Daytona. Well, my dad had the same colors, right? So a lot of people said it kind of looked like the short track version of Richard Petty flipping. But I remember sitting with my grandparents from the very earliest age at Stateline, and they sat right behind the flagman, so I got a good look at Ed Nelson for many years. So I really feel lucky to be able to remember those days all the way up through now. I missed the 70s. I didn't get to watch Jim Scott race. I wish I could have. But I saw much of the 80s. And as a kid, I was only really allowed to go to Erie's when I was really little, because you couldn't fall through the bleachers. So I remember seeing, Dave Hess Jr. as an infant, right? His parents or his mom would sit right in front of us, and it was kind of funny, remember seeing him and knowing what he's done the last 20, 30 years. So I can remember many decades of racing. When I was able to go to Stateline, that made me really happy. I love both tracks. But Stateline, there's something about Saturday night racing that's different than Sunday racing. I don't know. There's just something in the air that's different. And maybe I was getting in the pits younger than I should have, but somehow Fritz was forgiving and let that happen. And I started going in the pits when I was 10 or 11 and never left the pits.
Did your dad ever take you out onto the track? Did you ever drive it? Did you ever drive at all?
No, the first time I ever drove at Stateline, I built a spectator car with Bill Ottaway in 1993, and Bill was to race Stateline and I raced Erie's. So my first laps were actually at Erie's, but my first laps were taking some hot laps at Stateline in that brand new car, and that was pretty cool. That's the only time I've ever had a new car. Every car I've ever had from then till today has been a used car. So, and it was one that I actually helped build. I did a lot of welding on it. Bill did a ton on it. And we had a lot of fun with that car, but that was the first laps I ever took. My dad never let me take the car out for hot laps, which, that's fine. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in hot laps with a 15 or 16-year-old driving a triple disc clutch that had never driven anything but a tractor with a shifter. So, but those were the earliest laps I took in 93.
Did you race thereafter?
I started racing at Erie's then, and then I didn't race Stateline until 97. We ended up I only raced 1 year in spectators, and the way we did it, again, did what we could with what we had. My dad had that car that he built that I think was second in points the last time it ran in 92. You'd have to keep me honest on that, but if anybody could, it's you. And then I think Uplinger won the championship that year. And then what we did after that is he gave me that car, and he bought a car, the first car he ever drove that was a manufactured car. It was a Barry Wright car that he bought from Jake Lechner, and it was a really good car. It was a Barry Wright. He won with it, not out of the box, but within that first season. And I took his car, which was a Howe front stub car that he built with my spectator engine. So I'm going up against guys like David Scott with a 372 spectator engine that was pretty, could win in the spectators, but it was a good way for me to learn how to drive a car with big tires and a limited late.
What did you learn about the economics of it all? I mean, when the day was done, it's not for the faint of heart. I
have to blame probably some of my entrepreneurial endeavors the last 20 years on racing, because I remember being frustrated that I wanted more. I wanted a Tober car, right? I wanted the best money could buy, but it's hard to just do that when you're in college. So I started to get real aggressive with sponsorship, and I was able to land a meaningful amount of sponsorship for me to be able to race at a little higher level. A little more frequently we could get new tires. Never really had that manufactured car and big engine, but we were able to be competitive with it. Won a feature at Erie's, was top 10 at Stateline and Erie's, I think each year we ran, but was never really had the dominant equipment. And that was the one thing that, looking back, I wish I could have had. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to getting behind the wheel again here at Stateline, is to see what I can do with a little better equipment now. Of course, I'm old now, so who knows what'll happen. But yeah, for me, the need for money to race is what caused me to start my first company, which was called Race Fan, which I started when I was at Cornell.
Okay. What was that?
So the whole concept with Race Fan was to take dollars from national companies and drive it down to the grassroots of the sport. And because I was tired of calling all these national brand managers at places like Tide. You see the Tide car on TV. How can I get Tide on my car at Stateline? And I know that sounds silly, but that's kind of how I was thinking. How can I get Pepsi on my car at Stateline? And I ended up starting a company that actually did that, except it did it not for the racer, but for the racetrack. So Race Fan was a company. We operated what was probably one of the top 3 destinations for racing news on the internet. We had whowon.com, racefan.com, we bought hotlaps.com. We ended up rolling up about 5 different major racing sites. And then we powered all the news to Prime Media, which was Stock Car Magazine, Circle Track Magazine. We even powered NASCAR.com with their local news and information. But then the other side of it was the sponsorship side of it, where we got Valvoline, to spend over $1 million a year sponsoring grassroots racing. And we brought those dollars to about 600 racetracks. That was a cool company. It didn't deliver on the mission of getting money to the driver, but it helped us build a pathway for dollars from Napa, from Ford, from Valvoline, the U.S. Army. We landed the U.S. Army Weekly Series contract when they were sponsoring NASCAR. We got it down to the local promoters, so that was pretty cool. We'd show up with a promotion in a box.
So this was all while you're at college?
Well, I started it when I was in college, and then I sold out of it in 2005.
Okay.
So I ran it for about 5 years.
Unbelievable. Now, where'd you go to college?
Cornell.
Cornell. Was that because of the ag school, or did you have other reasons to go to Cornell?
I wanted to go to Cornell. I had political aspirations, going into college. I wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to be a lawyer, and then really have a political career. That was my motivation. I had been elected national vice president of Future Farmers of America. I was the second person since 1970 to do that from New York State. New York doesn't usually produce national officers. It's usually California, Texas, Florida. So that put me on the road. It actually took me out of the driver's seat, in 1996, because I was doing nothing but traveling. 200,000 miles in a year, visiting with kids all over the country and representing what is the largest student organization in the country. It's 700,000 students, and to be the national vice president was pretty cool. I guess cool enough to not race for a year and a half. But that for me was really an eye-opener, because I got to meet, people like the chief operating officer at Toyota in Japan, got to meet the president, got to meet lots of people, really in both big commercial circles and big corporate circles. And then I realized there's a few senators that were national FFA officers, like Sam Brownback, who I worked for. I went to work for him for a year when I was in college, as an intern, of course. And it was through all that I thought, I started having those experiences for about a year or two. And I changed. I decided I don't want to be in politics. I didn't like being in D.C. I didn't feel like that was going to be a good place to raise a family. I didn't really think politics was a good fit for me. Once I started to get my hands dirty, I wanted to be in business. And that's when I changed my major, from political science to economics at Cornell, and then I fell in love with that. So yeah, it was my senior year that I got Race Fan going when I was there.
So we might as well, while we're on this path, let's take your biographical path. You graduated from Cornell, then what?
So graduated from Cornell, started my company, had an investor out of Binghamton, and angel investor, and then grew that business. We were cash flow positive. I ended up selling it in 2005. And then it was about 2 years after that, started my next company, which was a much bigger scale company. It was called MDOT, and it was based in Erie, PA. It was right during the downturn in the market, 2008 and 9. So we really struggled to get venture capital. And Erie, it's amazing how Erie stepped up. We raised over $4 million of angel capital in Erie, Pennsylvania mostly, to support this business. And what it did, it was the first ever digital platform for coupons, for grocery coupons. So you could select all your coupons and then go to the store and just type in your phone number. And that company today, it's powering Tops and Wegmans, it's powering Kroger, Publix. It does about 70% of the volume of paperless coupons. So I always felt it could do that. It's good to see it do that. Sold out of it in 2011. And then moved to North Carolina. That's where the company that bought it was located. And I had to go there and run that business. So that's when I moved out of the area. And, it was bittersweet. I was looking forward to not having so much snow maybe in January and February. But, North Carolina was also closer to kind of the hardcore racing community. And I was racing asphalt. And if you're racing asphalt, North Carolina is a good place to be. So that's what I did in 2011. And then ended up selling that company again in 2014. And then, that's about the time that we leased Stateline with the intent to buy. And It was when that journey ended that I was able to start that journey.
You're now known as the founder and CEO of a company. What's it called?
It's called One Rail, and if I forget, I have the tattoo on my wrist of the logo, so we can never change the logo. So I started that. It's funny how that started. It started as a bad customer experience at Lowe's Home Improvement, and I wanted to buy a refrigerator. They were offering free delivery. Free delivery to me meant same-day delivery, because when your refrigerator dies, you don't really have a lot of time. You need a refrigerator immediately. And they said it would be about 10 days to get it, because they just didn't have personnel to do it in the store that day. They did it when they could do it, right? And so that instantly got my brain turning, like, why isn't there an Uber for delivery? I can use my phone to get a car to show up. Why can't I use my phone to get some guy that has a truck that wants to make 80, 90 bucks and deliver this refrigerator? So I couldn't find anything. I stopped everything I was doing at that point in life and just started to obsess over trying to solve that problem. And within a year, I had built it on my own. I didn't have an engineer. I built the first version of it. Lisa, who's my wife, started working with me on that about 7 years ago. And she took over operations, when we had it going. It was an on-demand moving and delivery company. So not only did we do delivery, we actually did more home moving than delivery. And that's a very tough business, home moving. Most people are not in a good mood when they're moving. It's usually some bad thing that's happening. They call it the 4 Ds of moving: death, dislocation, downsizing, and divorce. Yes. So that's usually what motivates a move. So that was tough. Lisa and I slugged away for a couple years. We had a small team of 9 or 10 people. And then I realized if we're going to win delivery, we have to stop being a courier. We have to stop being a on-demand moving and delivery company. We need to build a software platform that every single delivery from a company like Lowe's would go into, and then we'll match it to a courier. So instead of being the courier, we're going to go out and sign contracts with companies like DoorDash, Uber, Lyft, and then anybody who has a box truck or a Sprinter van or a pickup truck, and then we're going to be the connector. We're going to get the order data, we're going to connect it to a delivery company, and then the platform will track it so the customer knows where it is. And it's basically Amazon in a box is what we really had thought of. And with Lisa, taking hold of the operations, it let me go out and start raising capital. We bootstrapped it for the first couple of years. And we raised about $6 million in February of 20, because we had some pretty good contracts that we were able to prove customers would buy. So that business today, we employ about 200 people. We've raised over 100 million of venture capital. It's one of the fastest growing technology companies in the country. We've landed on the Deloitte Fast 500 2 years in a row. I think we were 24th. Inc. 5000, we were in the top 100 2 years in a row. And if I look back over the last 7 years, that's something that if I didn't have Lisa at my hip as my co-founder, it wouldn't have happened. So Lisa has been instrumental in helping build and grow that. And she will be doing the same here at Stateline. We're just a great team.
So you're really a logistics company.
Yeah.
For delivery.
Yeah, so if you think about, ironically, who's my biggest customer? Lowe's. So we're
just was there this morning.
Good. Well, you could stay home and just order. We'll deliver it to you. But yeah, but yeah, we serve enterprise retailers mostly. So Lowe's Home Improvement, we power every single same-day delivery in all 1,700 stores across the country. All 5,000 Advance Auto Parts stores uses us. Tractor Supply. And companies like Pepsi even, to do B2B delivery. So the company does almost 300,000 deliveries a day right now, and we think we'll double that in the next year. Really no room, there's no end in sight for growth because of Amazon. Everybody's playing catch up with Amazon. So that is where we've spent 100% of our time, the last 7 years. And very recently, was afforded the opportunity to seeing Stateline get separated from the land across the street. Actually got it back on my radar. Holly Hackett was very instrumental in that move and that strategy, and that paid off, I think, in getting the house sold. And I asked Lisa, we've been doing this one rail thing for a while. It's going really well. And as a founder of a tech company, liquidity is always a problem because you have all your net worth in your business. It's where it all is. I mean, all of your eggs are in that basket. And recently had an opportunity to get some liquidity, and we saw that as an opportunity. Just timing couldn't have been better.
So back to Stateline, the legacy from 1956 forward, and here at the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame, especially Randy Anderson, have documented that and have treated it. As you look at 2025, what's your vision, and how might you see 5 years from now?
Yeah, well, so there's a lot of excitement, I think, in what we can do at Stateline to make an impact so that it's there another, 69 years, right? This will be the 69th opening season coming up. First and foremost, I said this and I meant it on Facebook. We own the dirt, right? We own the dirt, and that was something that I failed at last time. And that was priority number one. We didn't start thinking about operations of this track until we closed on that track. So that was refreshing. But you can't own the legacy. The legacy is owned by the many tens of thousands of fans and thousands of drivers and supporters of this track. That's who owns the legacy. We're just stewards of that legacy. And being a steward of a legacy is a pretty big responsibility. And when we think about the vision is to first and foremost expand the schedule to kind of a full schedule once again, getting close to 20 events, start bringing some of the bigger shows back. We've already announced a couple ULMS shows, and we've got some more things we're going to announce. And it's really making this the destination for entertainment in Chautauqua County. I mean, from a big picture standpoint, we have to expose Stateline Speedway as a product. It's a product to more people and different types of people, and geographically to a little bit of a broader geographic area. For the track to be sustainable, we have to expand usage and expose it to more fans. And when I look at what Jim and Gene Scott and the Turners did, first of all, it couldn't have ended up in better hands. They invested in that track. The investment they made is unbelievable, between lights and wells and just everything they did. The buildings are clean, and they kept them up from when we renovated them. They've done a lot, and that's not really where we need to focus a lot of our attention. Our attention needs to be into marketing and promoting and making this the destination that I'm not saying it isn't now, but making sure that into the future we're expanding the usage of the track and also just getting a broader lineup of race cars to come to the track. Some different series that have been there in the past haven't been there in the last few years, and of course they were real quick to contact us.
The other entities, which are entertainment entities, are always looking beyond their normal traditional season, shoulder seasons. This would be after Stateline ends, be just before September. You got September, October, winter. You have thoughts of that as kind of shoulder season events and use of that 77 acres?
Yeah, definitely. So we have announced, we haven't named it yet, but there is a 2-day event that we're bringing to the track, the 12th and 13th of September. We are planning potentially an early October event at the track. When I had the track in 2014 and 15, we did snowmobile racing, and it went over great. I mean, we had hundreds of people at the track that normally probably wouldn't go to the track. So we did both oval and drag racing, snowmobile races, and ATV too. So that's something that's hit and miss based on weather. We know every winter here isn't the same. No 2 winters are the same here. We got very lucky with that event. But that's something we're thinking about. We'll make a decision in the next month if we want to maybe start out with a snowmobile race again in February. But ATV racing, we were pulling over 100 ATVs there on a Friday night with a concert. So just looking at different ways that you can build that entertainment value you know, and again, if I can bring 100 ATVs and only 20 of them usually come to the track to watch the big track on a Saturday night, and we can get 20 more to say, I want to see Superlates race, or I want to watch my buddy in the Challenger, that's a win, because we'll start feeding the big track by getting exposure through some of these other channels. But yeah, and that's something Lisa's also great at. With Lisa, she didn't grow up here, and that's actually a good thing, because she has the mindset of the person we're trying to reach that would give us a shot and take their family, you know, and whether it's a race or some other event we're holding, that's value that Lisa can bring, because she can look at it with a very objective, fresh set of eyes. And sometimes I'm a little too close.
You're such a collaborative guy. I mean, you're just obviously in your marketing world, you have to work with the Lowe's, the end user and the beginning user.
Yeah.
Is that similar in your racing world? Does such partnerships, does such collaborations exist, and that's where you see it?
That's a great parallel. When I think about One Rail, we have 1,000 different delivery companies that we're connected to. Our tech is connected to them, and they perform deliveries for us. There's about 12 million drivers in that network. Wow. I think about them a lot like the drivers, right? You have to take care of those couriers. And when I show, there's this triangle that corporate America loves to show. They show on the bottom is the employee. If you take great care of your employees, then the next level up is your customers. They're going to take great care of your customers. And then the next, on the very top of that pyramid, is the shareholder, so your investors, and, you know, folks that provide debt, et cetera. I think about the couriers, and in this case with Stateline, the drivers, as being on parallel with the employees. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't take care of them, none of the rest of the recipe works. So yeah, I am very collaborative. I think about the racers, at least I always felt this way when I was racing. I think of them as investors in a way. They're making a massive investment ahead of the season in their equipment, their time. No, they don't own part of the track, but it's pretty hard to put a show on without them. So I think of them a lot like investors in terms of giving them that respect, and that will be a huge focal going forward.
Are you in a position, I know this, you just bought the track, very aware of that, in the last few weeks, but as far as the management team and stuff like that, are you at a point of announcing any of that, or are you still too early to talk about it? Still
a little early. You know, we're targeting the first week of December to have a driver meeting, and at that point I think we'll have all the key positions filled. We're not really looking to reinvent the wheel. You know, there's some really good people in place right now. We've been meeting, you know, Lisa and I have been meeting with those folks the last 3 days, breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything in between, just making sure that we have that team solidified, you know, and most of it will be the team I think you'll find that was here last year. So not making a lot of changes there, but we'll be ready to announce that lineup here in another few weeks. Yeah, but right now I see from here, you know, here forward is really all about building trust and building consistency and stability with the track. And anytime there's an ownership change at a racetrack, it always creates a little bit of anxiety, right? And right now it's all about building trust, and you do that kind of one day at a time. That's the only way you can do it.
I understand this is, among other things, this is a passion project for Bill Catania.
It is.
And then you married well in the form of Lisa. And what does she tell you when you get kind of overly excited and you perspire with excitement? She say, Bill, little reality check. What does she say during those time periods?
Yeah, she's really good at reining me in on that. She's done that a few times already. And what's funny is I've had to do it with her a little bit, which is good, because that means she's getting excited. For example, there's things she wants to do from a aesthetics and design standpoint to the track that she just wants to go all in. And we do it well, I think, back and forth. She has to do it a little more with me because, yeah, it is a passion project, and that's something I have to be very mindful of. I think, I mean, if I had unlimited funds, who knows what that place would look like. But we're going to invest where we need to invest to make it a better fan experience, better driver experience. And Lisa is a good, she's a restrictor plate a little bit there.
Good, that's really good. I must tell you, I was very touched with the camera. I was the attorney for the other side, and your ability to get this done. But when we came to closing, the thing that touched me the most is the day before when you did the walk through, you brought your dad.
Yeah.
And when you went to closing, because I know from your attorney, you brought your dad.
Yep.
What did that mean to you?
It meant a lot. I mean, without him, I wouldn't be doing this. So it meant a lot. For him, he's had a struggle with his health the last few years. So to get him out of Twin Brook, and we didn't tell him what we were doing. We said we're going for a ride. So when we got to the track, I think he was thinking, we're going to just drive around and look at the track again, because I do that periodically. I'm a stalker of the track, so I will drive and do a sweep once in a while. A lot of people do. It means a lot to a lot of people. So this was the plan the whole time. Don't tell anybody, which Lisa and I were really good at, and that was really hard to not tell anybody. And I have to thank the sellers as well on that. They were really good about keeping this quiet, which is hard. And I made mistakes in the past where I started, half operating, right? Starting putting plans together. And this time I put zero effort into operating anything. I tried my best to not think about anything we would do. It was 100% focused on getting the closing done. And so with my dad, it was pretty cool. We showed up and said, we're going for a ride. We took him for a ride, and hey, you want to swing by the racetrack? And we pulled in and said, hey, we're buying Stateline today. And he was pretty surprised, to say the least. So we wheeled him around. We had to have his lower leg amputated a few years ago, so he's not walking yet. But wheeled him around the track. I got a fine appreciation for how hard it is to wheel a wheelchair at Stateline Speedway, so I need to think about that as we're looking at improvements. But it meant a lot, I think, to him, and it meant a lot to me. And the way things went last time wasn't good. I own that, and that's something I'm being real clear about. It's not something we don't talk about. It's something we do talk about. And with him, you can't make those things go away, but you can look at where we are now and do the right thing. And he was pretty excited.
Well, I think the community is very excited, Bill. And is there, as we wrap up here, is there a message you want to give to your look in the camera to all of your race fans and drivers? You want to give to them? Yeah,
first of all, thank you all, for making Stateline the most special place on earth. For those that know me well, that's the most sacred piece of real estate I could buy, whether I had $1 billion or $10 billion or $5. So that's how I feel about it. And I know that there's a lot of other folks that feel that way about it, and I'm thankful that so many people feel that way. There's so many people that want to see the track succeed. And that's the thing, I ran into folks like Chubb Frank in the quick fill, right? And to just bump into a guy like that is pretty cool. I've known him a while. And he says the same thing that somebody like Toby or Mark Matthews would say. All people that have been around the track their whole lives, they just want to see it succeed. And we all want that. So we're all aligned to the same mission. My biggest thing, I guess, for the fans is thank you for giving me a second chance. And I know that that's not easy. It wasn't easy for me to step up and do this. After you have a choice. You could disappear or you could run at the fire, and we decided let's run at the fire. I think there's a lot of great stuff we can do together, and I've been real thankful from the outreach that I've had from the racing community. It tells me they're supportive, and you won't find a more supportive owner with Lisa and I. We are very committed to making this work, and our sole focus is Stateline. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I made last time, was trying to do too much too fast. And on my bank account, I've become really good at raising capital over the last 10 years, but that's not what this is. This is something we want to grow slowly. It starts with making Stateline, from a financial standpoint, a very viable business over the next 3 years. and then we'll evaluate from there. But my promise, to the fans and the drivers is our sole focus is on Stateline.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. Lisa, wish we could put you on too, but you've been smiling and nodding throughout, so thank you very much. And to Bill, we wish you success.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all you and Randy do, and I'm looking forward to finding ways in the spirit of collaboration to help you continue doing the amazing job you've done with the legacy, being as supportive as we can to making sure the stories are told so that new fans understand just how rich the history is and that they can feel empowered to carry that on too. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.